Hey, hello. Ania Ray here from Quill Cup, a sisterhood of women writers who can't help but write and show up to the page. I wanted to share today's lesson on show and tell because when I was a brand new writer and was earnest about writing and publishing my first book, I hired a book coach. And the book coach kept saying things like, show, don't tell, show, don't tell. And I was like, I'm not sure what that means. And so I wanted to extend this resource for our writers, our hedgies, in one of our prickles, what we call our writing sessions, because, a quill, hedgehog, a group of hedgehogs is a prickle. And this is just a little snippet of what we learned, and I hope that it helps you enjoy.
What is the difference? What are the differences between show and tell? Just so that we're super clear and on the same page. So when I say show, when we say show as writers, we're saying something is present. It's like happening right now. It is an immediate scene. This doesn't mean, you guys, okay, that we're saying that it's written in present tense. That's not what I'm getting at. It could be written in past tense. It could be written in present tense, whatever. But the point is that it is something that's happening like right now. And don't start to overthink. Even in my mind, I'm like, well, right now isn't past tense. Past tense is not right now. Like, it's a scene that's happening, okay? And then when you are telling, that is something that is not past tense. It's just something that happened way before the scene has happened, okay? It's a second-hand report. This is the coolest part, okay? This is where Wired for Story like won my heart forever. Lisa Cron's Wired for Story. Showing engages the emotion of the reader because we are in the scene with the protagonist, with the characters. Whatever's happening to the characters is happening to us. And so we are feeling the same things. Now, telling is narrative, which means that it is engaging the intellect of the reader. You guys, that's using a different part of our brains, right? Because the intellect is the cognitive part of our brain. The emotion is like our amygdala and our hippocampus, because what's happening is the emotion that we are reading from the page is activating that little memory in our brains of like, I remember the last time I was betrayed like that. And all of a sudden we're in the story for reasons that the author will never know, right? That's why I'm always saying, like, you guys, you have no idea how your work will impact people who read it. You have no idea. You can't prepare for it because they're coming in with their own experiences. They're coming in with their own trauma, right? Even if you're like writing like a fun, loving story, if they're terrified of a little white dog, but they see your character interacting with that little white dog in a friendly way, and they see that that character is safe, you've just given them an entirely different perspective on how they could interact potentially with little white dogs. Now that's like a very like basic, shallow almost example, but it is still powerful nonetheless, right? So when we are showing, the specific setting is giving readers enough information to jumpstart their imagination, but the narrative is important in that, remember when we talked about life circumstances leading to automatic thoughts that lead to behavior, that lead to more life circumstances. If you're not quite sure what I'm getting at, this was a past prickle. There's actually a video posted in the resources channel on the Slack and also on the YouTube channel. So if you want to look at that for like further understanding, I suggest it. The narrative then, when we describe the character's past, because it's something that the reader needs to know, to where we realize like, oh snap, like that's why the character is the way she is. That's important. That needs to be told if you choose to tell it. And then the information, like she works in an office. You can show that up to a point, but at some point, one character or you, the narrator, is going to have to say she was an accountant. Like, you can't get beyond that. You have to tell some facts about your character, okay? So in that way, you are directly characterizing your character, as opposed to just showing that she is very busy and perhaps like not very organized because she has papers scattered everywhere. Okay, so when we are talking about characters, okay, we've talked about direct characterization, indirect characterization, but when we are thinking of emotions, when we're first telling a story, we are saying she was sad that this happened, or she was really excited, and that's fine, that's normal, but we need to use body language instead. It's pretty standard. So if you are a writer who is still using emotion words, it's time to evolve, it's time to grow. So we have to show how a character really feels. This is really important. Even if the opposite is stated, body language will tell us what the character is actually going through. Okay, so very easy example, I could tell he was sad. If you have a character say that, then you're doing the work for the reader by making the inference for them. Remember, that's the engaging the intellect. You're telling them. And they're like, oh, okay, he was sad. The reader doesn't have to do any work, which essentially translates to they were not engaged. Okay. Now, if we changed it and we said her typically strong shoulders were slouched, instead of holding her hands at attention when it was covering her face, they used Kleenex tissues littered the space around her. All of a sudden, we're like, oh, she's going through something. She's sad. So the reader has to do a little bit more work. And the most important thing here, if you're taking notes, write in really big, large capital letters, trust your reader. Trust that the reader will be able to make the inference that you are implying. If we have a chance to give characters a second to catch their breath, okay? So if there was a battle, give us a chance to catch our breath with the soldiers in the tent. And if there was an intense conflict, maybe you can give a character a chance to spend a quiet afternoon with her family, right? It's just like life. Like we put our characters through something, and then we have to let them breathe a little, because it gives our readers a chance to breathe as well. So telling provides breaks. It helps flow as it varies the rhythm and texture of your writing. It gives continuity to the story, like it keeps the story moving. And then keep in mind that you can make a lot of time pass when you are telling. So you can start the next chapter with the next 2 weeks were a blur. The 2 weeks that followed were much of the same, right? There's a lot that you can do when you narrate something. You can tell us a lot, and that'll save you time as the writer, because you're like, well, it's not a critical moment, but it's still important that we know what happens. So those are the benefits of that. And then when we use show and tell responsibly, then readers will get a smooth sense of the development of the character's feelings, with critical moments demonstrated by scenes. So these scenes take place in real time. Readers watch as the events unfold, and then something critical must happen. Keep in mind that in these scenes, you have to have action or dialogue, and then you have the physical action beats to remind readers where they are. And at the end of the day, when we are editing and we want to make sure that our readers are staying engaged, we need to ask ourselves a few questions. This is not like the most expansive list ever. This is just a place to start, okay? I try to assemble things that both beginner writers and a little bit more advanced, I would still be using this checklist. So can the reader imagine where the character is? It's just like what Bethany was telling us. Are your descriptions relevant with specific details? Are you letting us know that wasn't just a dog, that was a Chihuahua or a Great Dane? Okay. Have you told your reader important information about your character to set the context so that they understand the plot? If you haven't told us that she's an accountant, and by the 20th page she's doing accounting things, but we don't know that she is, you've trusted your reader a little too much. So you have to make sure that you tell us some things. Have you replaced every emotion word, or just about every emotion word, with body language? Are the critical moments of your character's development in scenes? And have you varied pacing by including narration between critical scenes? Have you given us a chance to catch our breath? Okay. So that is what I have to share with you today. I want to know what thoughts come up, what questions come up. If you are thinking about a golden nugget that you're like, this really helps me when I'm thinking about showing and not telling, or showing and telling, this is the perfect place to share it.
Sure do hope that that was helpful for you. If you would be interested in attending more lessons, workshops, or webinars like this one, we always have something going on at the Quill. And so if you would like to join, please join us. www.quillandcup.com. Your first prickle unlocks a trial week within the sisterhood, so you can see if you feel at home. Can't wait to see you at the table, sister.